best desktop PC that I've ever used. The one area where it falls short, ironically, is gaming performance. That's not really an issue when I'm using it as a workstation, wiggling the mouse to embiggen it like on a Mac. This is a critical issue for 66% of our last Linux Challenge participants, but then when I rebooted my system, it caused it to stop working. And that is really high praise indeed. Just like I will praise our sponsor.
LTT recently published another video about the Steam Machine, and this time claiming it was the best desktop PC he has ever used. And if you've watched his previous video, then forget about it, because this one is far more interesting. In the previous video, if he was at least trying to create the illusion of being balanced, in this one, he was not even pretending. The only thing missing apparently was for Linus to publicly announce that he was Valve's general sales manager, because I have not seen any official Steam Machine ad this aggressively framed or this packed with sales techniques and rhetorical manipulation. And as someone with 11 years of experience in sales, I can tell you one thing. I recognize a talented salesman when I see one. Linus could review a car with no wheels and explain that it was never really meant to be driven, but as a stationary office, it was the best vehicle he has ever used. He opens the video by saying that Valve positioned the Steam Machine primarily as a gaming device and an alternative to traditional consoles. Then he claims that Valve got it wrong and that the Steam Machine is actually a much better desktop or workstation and perhaps the best desktop computer he has ever used.
When Valve announced the Steam Machine, everybody, including Valve, saw it primarily as a competitor to living room consoles like the PlayStation 5. But if you ask me, everyone, including Valve, got it wrong. To be clear, it's perfectly okay for couch gaming. It's just that, in my opinion, as a desktop PC or as a workstation, it's a way better product. Maybe the best desktop PC that I've ever used.
That is a genuinely interesting and unexpected claim. So I'm curious to hear what exactly led him to that conclusion. Before presenting his arguments, however, Linus admits that the Steam Machine is not the fastest or the flashiest computer, it does not offer industry-leading repairability or upgradability, and its price, in his own words, is a big challenge.
To be clear, it's not the fastest or the flashiest. It doesn't offer industry-leading upgradability or repairability, and the price is a big challenge.
Before we examine his arguments, I think it is important to define what a desktop workstation actually is, and what makes one workstation better or worse than another. Because if I leave the term vague, I can say that this calculator is the best workstation ever made, it handles professional calculations, has an incredible battery life, and has never once shown me a Windows advertisement. The definition I'm about to use is based on how organizations such as the SPEC evaluate professional workstations through real-world workloads across the CPU, graphics, memory, and storage. It is also based on how Microsoft and major workstation makers describe computers built for demanding professional work. A desktop PC is simply a non-portable personal computer designed to remain at a desk. A workstation PC is a desktop built or configured for demanding professional work such as video rendering, CAD, software development, artificial intelligence, or heavy media production. What makes one workstation better than another depends on the specific workload, but the main characteristics are the ones you see on the screen. So installing Chrome, VLC, and WhatsApp proves that a computer can function as a normal desktop, but it does not prove that it is an exceptional workstation. And now let's see what Linus offers as evidence.
What Valve's designed here is an outstanding little desktop cube PC that manages to offer up some expansion in the form of an M.2 slot and 2 DDR5 SODIMM slots, along with reasonable repairability through a partnership for replacement parts with iFixit, and an unassuming design that manages to be as quiet as it is adorable.
The Steam Machine is small, quiet, and repairable, and allows you to change the RAM and storage. All of that is perfectly good. I have no reason to disagree with any of it. I'm just not sure when small, quiet, and adorable became the definition of the best desktop PC ever made. Perhaps I've been evaluating computers incorrectly this entire time. But let's see, maybe later he will provide us with more arguments to support his claim. Before his defense team arrives, yes, he said the best desktop PC I have ever used. If you think that makes the claim meaningless, despite coming from a guy with huge trust who has built his entire career testing computers, then go back watching his videos. This channel will only upset you. He also admits that the Steam Machine's main weakness is gaming performance, but apparently that no longer matters because he's using it as a workstation.
The one area where it falls short, ironically, is gaming performance. But that's not really an issue when I'm using it as a workstation.
Very convenient. The machine performs poorly at the job Valve built it for, so we simply give it a different job and stop discussing the performance. It is like reviewing a restaurant, discovering that the food is terrible, and declaring it the best restaurant you ever visited because the chairs were comfortable. And his final piece of evidence is that during normal daily use, the Steam Machine does not feel slow.
And for day-to-day use, it doesn't feel slow. Grabbing my frequently used programs was painless. Chrome for browsing, Zap for WhatsApp messages, OBS Studio for screen cap, VLC, a calculator.
And by daily use, he means the brutal professional workload of operating Chrome, WhatsApp, VLC, OBS, and after the successful installation of a calculator.
And for day-to-day use, it doesn't feel slow.
For a $1,000 computer, I would certainly hope not. His next major argument is that Valve has taken Arch Linux, KDE Plasma, Flatpak, and other existing technologies and combined them into a polished, convenient package.
A lot of what I'm about to say about SteamOS is really about Arch Linux, the KDE Plasma desktop environment, or Flatpak. Valve is doing the work of curating all of the elements that make up SteamOS and validating the experience of how they work together.
And Valve really does deserve credit for making the experience coherent and easy to use. There's just one very small problem. This is an argument for SteamOS, not the Steam Machine. These technologies are not exclusive to this device. They can run on other PCs as well. So none of this explains why Valve's specific $1,000 PC hardware is supposedly exceptional. Calling it the best desktop PC because KDE has pleasant menus is like calling a hotel the greatest building ever constructed because someone put comfortable furniture inside it. At this point, I'm starting to think that what we are watching is not product analysis, it is feature fetishism. Linus keeps collecting tiny interface details one after another until the sheer number of arguments creates the illusion that something substantial has been proven. The monitor resolution was detected.
My oddball 6K by 2.5K monitor resolution was detected immediately.
The settings menu is easy to navigate.
I was struck by just how simple the configuration menus are.
Pointer acceleration is disabled.
Thank you for having pointer acceleration off by default. Like, duh, right?
The cursor gets bigger when you shake it.
Thoughtful features like wiggling the mouse to embiggen it, like on a Mac.
Windows reopen somewhere sensible.
A freshly launched application will pop up somewhere sensible, like, I don't know, maybe in the middle of the screen.
You can click a volume slider and hear a sound.
The ability to ping your speakers simply by clicking the volume slider rather than dragging it.
I'm honestly confused about whether I should explain why these arguments are meaningless, because doing so would imply that I think that you need it explained. All of these things may be true, but they are almost completely irrelevant to his central claim that this may be the best desktop PC he has ever used, and to his attempt to reposition it as a workstation. I was expecting him to test an actual professional workload like rendering a large video project, compiling code, or editing high-resolution footage, or doing something like that. You know, the sort of things a reasonable reviewer might test before recommending a computer as a workstation. And naturally, this would not be a proper review without a brief scheduled criticism segment.
The Steam Machine has a USB-C port, and it's pretty high speed at 10 gigabit per second, but unfortunately, it is not wired up as a display output, nor does it have USB 4 capabilities to allow it to work with Thunderbolt peripherals. Or, while we're at it, a 2.5 gig network port.
These criticisms are funny because they are unlikely to matter to most buyers, and a large percentage of people will never use Thunderbolt or need wired networking faster than 1 gigabit, and that makes them perfect flaws to criticize. They sound technical and important enough to make Linus appear honest and independent, but harmless enough that he can immediately explain why you should probably not care.
Unlikely to be a huge issue for you, since you likely won't be carrying your Steam Machine back and forth to the office in your backpack.
Meanwhile, the actual elephant in the room remains untouched. The real question is not whether the USB-C port could have been slightly better. The real question is how an expensive, underpowered gaming machine became a supposedly better workstation and the best desktop PC Linus has ever used without demonstrating any serious professional workload. But discussing that might interfere with the emotional conclusion, so instead we investigate and discuss the tragic absence of 2.5 gigabit Ethernet.
I suspect Valve knew what they were doing when they focused instead on high-speed wireless networking and left off 2.5 gig LAN.
And then the video wanders into a long discussion about network shares, NAS transfers, tail scale, Google Drive, phone ingestion, and moving files between home and work. All of that is great, but what is funny is that these highly advanced technological features are being presented as a reason for why this is the best desktop PC Linus has ever used.
I can also tell you about our sponsor.
Ugreen. Their DXP 2800 GT is a great NAS for backing up anything.
But what an extraordinary coincidence. The sponsor of the video just happens to be a company selling a NAS, and the structure is suspiciously neat. The sponsor is introduced near the beginning of the video, and then later the review suddenly develops an extended interest in network storage, file transfers, and transferring data between home and work.
You might recall that Elijah really struggled with accessing network shares in our recent Linux Challenge series. But mounting network locations as though they are a physically attached disk is not well supported, especially on immutable OSs at this time. Once I had the files on my NAS at home, a quick AI guide had me using Tailscale to remotely transfer those files from my Steam machine to my work NAS.
And after all of that, the video conveniently returns to the sponsor selling the exact product that fits the problem we have just spent several minutes discussing. Am I supposed to believe that this entire sequence appeared naturally by accident? What are the odds that a completely natural, independent chosen section of the review would fit the sponsor's product this perfectly? Did Linus first decide that these networking workflows were essential to proving that the Steam machine was the best desktop PC he has ever used, and then by astonishing coincidence discover that the sponsor was selling precisely the product needed to complete the discussion? Or was the desktop workstation angle simply a convenient way to create a long section about network storage so that the advertisement would feel less like an advertisement and like a natural continuation of the video? For a moment, I even started wondering whether this whole networking detour was only there to give the ad a smooth introduction. Perhaps even the whole video needed a reason to exist, and the sponsor generously provided one. But I'm sure that is just my suspicious mind. Hopefully. But let's remain optimistic. Perhaps the next advantage or disadvantage will finally be something substantial like professional software support, rendering performance, and anything that might explain why this is supposedly the best desktop PC Linus has ever used. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves.
Windows has this great feature that allows you to click with your middle mouse in the blank space on a scrolling web page or application, and then just move the mouse to start a smooth, continuous scroll.
And according to Linus, this is a critical issue affecting 66% of the participants in their last Linux challenge.
This is a critical issue for 66% of our last Linux challenge participants.
Which sounds statistically alarming until you realize that 66% means 2 people.
If you've ever experienced repetitive strain symptoms in your wrist, I'm not a doctor, but you need to start using auto-scroll right now.
So guys, just in case you did not know, if you have any wrist pain, this is the reason. It's this movement right here. It is not because your desk is too high or your wrist is bent at a 45-degree angle or you spent 9 hours at a computer without moving. No, it is this wheel. But fortunately, the treatment is very simple. Just simply do not scroll it, click it once. You know, sometimes I just wonder whether Linus is slowly increasing the level of absurdity to see how far he can go before his viewers will notice that they're just part of an experiment. And if you thought that the mouse wheel was as irrelevant as this video could possibly become, then please remain seated. We are about to enter the printer section.
A couple of years ago, we tried to use SteamOS to troubleshoot a driver issue on an old printer. And what I discovered was that it straight up didn't have built-in printer support. Well, fast forward to today, and it took me just about 30 seconds to go from no printer to this delightful booklet of wasted paper when I tried to print a test page. Progress.
In a video whose central thesis is that the Steam machine may be the best desktop PC Linus has ever used, the evidence has now progressed from cursor animations and middle-click scrolling to whether a printer can produce paper. Then he connected a scanner, the software became confused, tried to save the scans in a format it did not support, and produced several errors. But PDFs worked.
Progress. With a little bit more work, I could have had my printer working, and when I really tried to throw it for a loop and I threw my Fuji ScanSnap at it, I got that working in less than 3 minutes. Okay, the free software I used got a little confused, trying to save my scans as an image rather than a PDF, defaulting to bitmaps and then spitting out errors about how bitmaps are not supported, but PDFs worked, so progress.
SteamOS can now communicate with basic office equipment slightly more successfully than it could several years ago. But I will remind you that these are basic desktop functions that computers have handled for decades, and they are being presented as major evidence in support of an extraordinary claim. Next, Linus acknowledges that Windows has features SteamOS does not, and the example he chooses is facial recognition.
The lack of, facial recognition through Windows Hello kinda sucked.
Why he chose facial recognition as the decisive Windows advantage rather than the enormous ecosystem of officially supported devices, hardware, drivers, and professional tools, only God knows. So his first disappointment is that SteamOS cannot look at Linus's face and say, yes, unfortunately, that is him. Then he installs a utility for his audio interface, reboots the machine, and the entire setup stops working.
Part of getting my GoXLR interface configured involved installing a utility that was not available in a Flatpak. But then when I rebooted my system, it caused it to stop working.
Basically, a minor inconvenience for what may be the best desktop PC he has ever used. But do not worry, Linus immediately explains that preventing these modifications is actually a brilliant feature for gamers.
But while that's a downer for me, for gamers and application users who want to be protected from system-destroying modifications, I feel this was a very smart choice on Valve's part.
So when the gaming machine performs poorly, it becomes a workstation, and when the workstation cannot preserve a professional audio setup, it becomes a gaming machine again.
OneDrive isn't prompting me to buy a subscription, and Edge hasn't asked me today if I'd like to switch to it now or later, and it occurred to me that there's an easy answer to all of that. Windows can be configured to not do any of those things.
And fair enough, actually, I agree with him here. Microsoft's constant recommendations are really irritating, but then Linus admits that Windows can be configured to stop doing all of this.
I gotta confess, I get almost like a PTSD type of response to those interruptions at this point, because everything about it feels well-intentioned. I have so much more patience for it.
And meanwhile, SteamOS has failed file transfers, produced scanner errors, broken his audio interface setup after a reboot, and required a terminal command to just boot directly into desktop mode.
Valve, can you please add a button to default to boot up in desktop mode so that I don't need to use a terminal command? It was the one normal thing I did on this system the entire time I was using it that required the console.
So, to summarize this entire video in a couple of sentences, the Steam Machine is maybe the best desktop PC Linus has ever used, and supposedly works better as a workstation than as a gaming device because it is small and quiet. The cursor gets larger when you shake it, the speakers make a sound when you test them, it runs Chrome, WhatsApp, VLC, OBS, and after successful installation, even a calculator. And now, if you have watched this entire video and still do not understand what this kind of coverage is doing and whose interests it ultimately benefits, then perhaps I should stop presenting evidence and start using Linus's method instead. Let's try it. For generations, humanity has defined a vehicle by one primitive standard: whether it can take you somewhere. We believed it was time to challenge that assumption. The manufacturer calls this an office chair, but after several years of extensive testing, I believe the manufacturer fundamentally misunderstood its own product. Introducing the Stationary Mobility Workstation, 5 independently rotating wheels, full 360-degree directional freedom, 0 emissions, and an advanced human-powered propulsion system. It does not merely turn corners, it rejects the traditional concept of forward. Acceleration is immediate, provided your feet can reach the floor. Inside, the driver is surrounded by uncompromised luxury, variable seat heighting, dynamic lumbar positioning, adjustable support, and enough storage space underneath for absolutely nothing. Engineered not around the destination, but around your refusal to stand up. There is no infotainment system, because the journey is the entertainment. There are no software updates, no monthly connected service fees, and unlike my actual car, it has never asked me to renew a subscription. Now, performance is not perfect. Top speed depends heavily on flooring conditions, footwear, and personal dignity. Off-road capability is limited, highway performance is not particularly rosy, and total driving range is approximately 6 feet before you begin questioning your decisions. But those criticisms only matter if you continue thinking of it as transportation. This was never designed to take you somewhere. It was designed to remain exactly where it is, while providing the emotional experience of movement. Some vehicles transport the body, this one transports the definition of transportation. The chair did not fail as a vehicle. The public simply misunderstood the category. Quiet, comfortable, repairable, 5 wheels, and possibly the best vehicle I have ever used.